If you're watching this, then that means you're a weeb. Welcome to the second week of Débutées on Air Winter 2021. Last week, two shows have ended up in the ashtray, and as of this week, I can assure you that the rest of the Débutées are safe from the axe. So without wasting more time, let's head straight to the important stuff. I'm gonna be real honest with this one. This episode was a bit difficult to watch for me, for a few reasons. The last portion of the episode where they went on stage, did their thing, lights out, prompt to play, then back to performing the OG is the kind of scenario that I would rather skip than sit through and watch. I don't know, guys, but what I do know is that I'm not fond of those scenes, but wishing that it would be the last of it would probably be me smoking weed. Another thing is that I realized a flaw in Gekidol's art style. Moe blobs for characters aren't an issue for me, but it turns out having Moe blobs express emotions that doesn't equate to cute or happy faces makes the characters look weird in some way. It's as if Moe blobs are just meant to portray CGDCT and any ounce of drama kinda ruins the character's design. There are question marks in my head if I should drop this or not, but seeing the preview of the next episode got me hopeful enough that maybe, just maybe, Gekidol can bounce back from what I think is a rather shaky second episode. In the opening episode, I wasn't able to touch on Mario's facade as I was too busy praising Hortensia Saga for doing better than King's Raid, which, in hindsight, isn't that great of an achievement anyway. Now that's out of the way, I still find it to be a bit of bullshit that they haven't realized that Marius is a girl. I mean, she's not even a convincing boy in Pretend either, which becomes a 50-50 on who to blame. The animation for not hiding her femininity well enough, or the writing which isn't giving us a good reason as to why they haven't figured it out until today. Or a third option, which is the worst case possible scenario, or worst case scenario, where both the animation and writing are at fault. I also said in the first episode that I can forgive the VA mismatching with their character's appearance. But for Alfred's case, it's too jarring not to get annoyed by it. Like the Mario situation, I'm not sure who to blame here, but I'm leaning towards the accepted VA output as I don't think there's anything that can be done with Alfred's appearance. Story-wise, not much has happened in this episode, and while we did get a few flashbacks here and there to further contextualize the current situation, Hortensia Saga is currently moving at a snail's pace, which is not an issue, but I hope we don't stay this slow for too long. Before anything else, I would like to address my current stance with Idoly Pride. As of episode 2, the singing portion is safe and I no longer feel the need to be concerned about it. The dance portion, on the other hand, we've yet to see more than what was shown in the OP, and that's still making me a tad bit concerned if they can pull through on that department. Going into the episode, the basic character setups of our main duo idols would definitely make an interesting dynamic going forward. As for the other girls of our idol group, not much to say yet, so I'll be holding my reservations for them until they reveal more about themselves. As for our ghost idol, my theory that the dude is just hallucinating about her is now gone to dust. And it is for the best as Mana, becoming a literal ghost who can't be at peace yet, is a set piece that makes me wonder how the director will utilize to develop the show positively. With not much more happening after the dorm scene, I end my say for this episode of Idoly Pride. After watching this episode, the answer to my question last week is now clear. There is room, a lot of room for improvement for Lloyd. His exam result and how others behave around him remind me so much of One Punch Man. It's not that he failed the exam nor he is rude to others, but rather it's more of the exam not being capable enough to comprehend the limits of his power. And the people around him are constantly on edge because of his high ceiling. As for what that room of improvement is that I haven't mentioned, if it's not obvious to you, it's his lack of self-worth. Then again, I wouldn't wish that for him, as that is the essence of his character. A humble brag with no concept of self-worth. No, no, no. No, 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 no. During that first scene, I I definitely agree with Kabane that Akira is a pretty girl. Until I found out the truth. No, 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 no. Just no. Please, no. Spare me from this tragic fate. Why did it have to end this way? No. On a serious note, the trap reveal has to be the saddest reveal so far this season. One that would sting for quite a while. As for today's case, while Shiki has neat Spider-Man genes, Kabane is a literal tank that is currently hard carrying this team. Consider my interest peaked when Inugami-san mentioned about turning into steel, and I can't wait to see him use it in future episodes. As for that final phone call, they're really setting Kabane up as this special boy that needs to perform special things. Kinda reminds me of Itadori from Jujutsu Kaisen, and that wraps it up for episode 2 of Kemono Jihen. 2 episodes in, and it's definitely the Height fights that I live for when watching this series. The characters so far haven't diverged from their initial personality setups, but I'm going ahead and bet that Atlee is best girl. This episode's Height fight isn't that far off from our first episode in terms of quality, but I do hope to see more destructive fights in future episodes. I find Elsha's Height to be rather slick in design, though she was pretty useless in her debut transformation. To be fair, it's her first time using it, and no, back arrow doesn't count for comparison. I also find Shubi's library search to be a bit funny, as it revealed that yet again, Eren Yeager can't stop being involved in world-ending scenarios, which kinda implies that Yukikaji seems to have a thing with ending entire worlds in whatever anime he's in. Seriously, he's definitely building that exterminatus reputation ever so slightly, and that's it for this week's episode of Back Arrow. Last week, I ordered one episode of Shock Value for dinner, and holy shit, it did not disappoint. It's not often that a TV format anime would go to such lengths to portray torture and rape, but the Mad Lads at Studio TNK have outdone themselves with this episode. The suffering and agony of Princess Flare, while it did not disturb me as I've seen far worse, it definitely will to most untrained eyes, and personally, TNK deserves all the praise they could get for portraying a scene as heavy as this. My only gripe was that Kearu memory wiped her way too early, as I thought he'll be torturing and raping her until we get an absolute mind break. But he was too merciful for my taste. Hey guys, don't blame me. I've seen far worse torture in other shows. The descent of Princess Flare from Scum Princess Flare to S-Slave Freya has to be a speedrun record for a complete 180. Except it might not be a legal submission for speedrunning because of the memory wipe. As for my stance on redo of Healer with respect to future episodes, consider me with high anticipation and hype on how this show will develop, for better or worse. Where do I even begin? This episode is one part Tugeza with that very nice scene with Lola, one part aggressive ear fetish by the one and only Noir, and one whole me watching this show as if it's a mirror, reflecting how corrupt and unclean I've become thanks to anime in general. I've already said this in the last video that you should expect me to keep watching this cesspool of a show, and in hindsight, I simply cannot see myself from stopping consumption of this degenerate, beautiful piece of art. What more do I have to say? This is etchy. It should be self-explanatory enough what we're getting here. A few things come to my mind after watching this episode. First, Hinami really is the type of person that I would wish to have as a friend. The level of support she has provided is unreal given how she and Tomozaki have just met not that long ago. If you have a friend that hard carries you like that, keep them. And no kidding, this advice cannot be any more overstated. Second, about Minimi, for me, she oozes such a cliche character setup, I can't help but think of her as a mere plot device for Tomozaki. Sure, she's nice and is buddy-buddy with our main couple, but there's not much to invest in her. Maybe when she opens up to Tomozaki a bit more, we could get those Mimimi stocks up and running for investment. Last but just as relevant is the question of Tamachan. Like Mimimi, I also can't help but view her as a plot device where Tomozaki has to deal with someone who also speaks what's on their minds. Depending on how the Tamachan arc pans out, it will definitely determine my stance on her and Mimimi as well. As much of a terror Hajima is as a teammate, I am siding with him in this drama episode. I know what it feels when one of your teammates is performing like dog shit and looks at you with eyes that scream, "Carry me, senpai, pretty please." Sometimes, I don't mind those instances when I'm in a team sport, but do it at crucial moments and do it too many times, I'll be absolutely livid with you. Sure, people around you will talk shit about you when you push them too much, but like Hajima, I too share that competitive drive in the things I do, and if someone can't keep up with me, I lose interest and stop giving a shit about that shit teammate. Since that shit teammate this episode is our protagonist, we know they'll reconcile soon. But how they'll do it is a point of interest to be sure. Let's hope its resolution isn't rushed and doesn't come out as a cheap friendship apology bullshit. This second episode had my Yuri senses tingle, and it definitely had my hopes up, as several scenes definitely imply good old-fashioned Yuri. The abandoned building and the surrounding environment that they explored in this episode reminded me so much of Silent Hill. The constant, ominous feeling surrounding our couple throughout the episode was presented very well, and today's villain is no pushover either. Unlike the first episode, the pacing here is much more stable, and if they can keep the pacing within acceptable parameters, then this already mysterious but entertaining alien hunting shtick can only get better from here. In this episode of Yuki Aoi screaming and commentating about life as a spider, we're now heading towards Pokemon territory. The reveal at the end that monsters can evolve provided they've earned enough experience and levels is the type of power boosting that I've always loved ever since I played Pokemon back when I was a child. I still do today, and quite recently, I started another Pokemon playthrough on Platinum because I missed it. As for all scenes not including our best spider, I have a confession to make. I don't really give a fuck about those other characters, honestly. I don't see how I'll get myself emotionally invested with anyone not named Kumiko, and at this point, I don't really mind it at all. All I need is more spider scenes, and my experience with this show is already complete. Another week of skate means another week of me simping to how well crafted this series is. One thing I realized while watching this episode is that I too want to try skateboarding sometime in the future. As a low key salesman, skate has definitely gotten a hold of my wallet, and I'm looking forward to the day I get to buy my own skateboard. As for today's episode, it's a literal training arc, with a few pieces being developed, most notably Mia challenging Langa to a beef, who just a few scenes ago managed to nail his first Oli. Also, I actually find it a shock that behind that intimidating exterior of Shadow is a soft-hearted florist, not the occupation I expected from someone who exudes gangsta energy. With that said, I am a proud simp for this show and will continue to do so as the season progresses. In this episode, we finally get a glimpse of Rudy's previous life, and it really got the point across on why he's noticeably too careful and cautious so far in the series. To undergo such bullying and humiliation, I find it miraculous that he didn't commit suicide for it, given the fact that Japan is notorious for having too many suicides due to this kind of treatment. Another thing that stood out for me is unlike most anime where the bullied harbors a deep hatred against the bullies, Rudius isn't that kind of guy. On the contrary, he's actually more relieved to have been given a second chance to live in the new world more than anything else. I also find it a bit sad when Roxy had to go. I wish she and Rudius could have at least a goodbye hug that would have been a cherry on top for that powerful emotional scene. Then again, we found out that Rudius managed to steal one of Roxy's panties as his keepsake, so all is good and the episode ends on a high note. Before watching this episode, a friend and I had a discussion on what this show is possibly all about. We theorized that the girls are undergoing depression, with Otto-chan and Nero-chan having one of their loved ones die as the cause, and the challenges that they face as they quote-unquote save each girl from each egg is a symbolism of their attempts to change and move on from their hurt. With what transpired this episode, that theory of ours seems to have gained more traction. This episode also revealed to us that the enemies that Otto-chan faces largely depends on the trauma of the girl that they're trying to protect in that instance, with the gymnast coach as today's boss to kill. By the end of the episode, it seems to be hinted that Otto-chan and Nero-chan might form a party and do these Monster Hunter quests as a duo, which I'm all in for because more beautiful fight animations for us viewers. Before I end this segment, there's something I wasn't able to mention in the last video, so I'll mention it now. The character designs of each of these best girls are absolutely top notch. They're all unique and gorgeous in their own way that even the episodic girls could even claim best girl status with ease. It's just a matter of preference for us viewers on who we think the best designed girls are in this series. As for me, Otto-chan is by far the most beautiful character design in the series, and Studio Bones are likely to be aware of that too. Her entire kit literally screams utmost care and precise detail from the studio's artist. So I did some research and a baffling question comes to mind. Why did it took this long for Horimiya to get an anime adaptation? Of course not counting the OVAs prior to this as those were made as if they were a one-time thing. So, the answer? I actually don't know because I would like to leave that question to the people who are watching this. But that's assuming anyone's watching this at all. As for the episode itself, good God, I don't even know which Horimiya scene is my favorite. They're literally a match made in heaven, and the scene where Miyamura defended his wife from the student council is such a mm, mm, like mm. It's fucking good. Like tastes so good. Just when I thought Tonikawa redefined the concept of an ideal couple last season, Horimiya literally entered the chat this season and introduced a fucking 10 over 10 iteration of an ideal couple. One more thing to add, it is now official to call anyone who hates this series a heretic and should be reported to the nearest inquisitor for a good old-fashioned purge. So that's it for week 2. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video and leave a comment if you have something to share or if you have any questions to ask. I hope you have a good time wherever you are, stay safe, and see you guys next time.